Welcome to the fourth episode of DPS, Dayton Public Schools, The Next Level. This is Dr. David Lawrence, Interim Superintendent of Dayton Public Schools, and I am rocking the Kemp shirt today. Every week I try to rock a shirt from one of our 27 buildings, and today, Kemp, a shout out to you. Definitely one of the cleanest buildings in the country. And I'll have our regular guests reintroduce themselves.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Lisa Miner, Associate Superintendent of Curriculum and Leadership.
Hello, I'm Dr. Marvin Jones, and I'm the HR Director.
Hello, I'm Judy Spurlock, and I'm the Interim Chief of Elementary Schools.
Hello, Erin Dooley, Chief of Secondary Schools.
Hi, I'm Akeisha Sheehy, Chief Academic Officer.
Hi, I'm Sharon Goins, Director of Equity.
Hi, I'm Melinda Clark, and I am the Director of Accountability and Assessment.
So today we're talking about attendance, and we're going to start with students, and then we're going to get to staff. So attendance matters. Let's talk about students and why attendance matters, and maybe even by grade band, why does it matter?
Well, I'll get started because when I heard this topic, thank you, Dr. Lawrence, for giving us this topic, because having worked in elementary schools all the way to high school, and I worked with at-risk youth in a dropout recovery school where attendance was, we had a lot of challenges with making sure kids came every day. They weren't in the habit, and when I researched to find out where did this come from or what happened, when I was able to check down to their elementary records, they hadn't been sent to school from kindergarten. There were a lot of them that were excessively absent as high schoolers, and they just weren't used to coming every day. I was glad if they were there 3 days out of the 5 days. And then when I checked and I talked to the parents, I noticed 27 days in first grade, 32 days in second grade. So those patterns that are established from elementary school, it gets to the point where kids aren't even used to getting up and coming every day. So it's critical. And I'm glad we do have supports in the schools that at those elementary levels, we do all we can to turn that around, because it kind of embeds that pattern of not even people used to physically just getting up and coming to school every day, which we know that'll lend itself towards their work habits.
And I'm going to echo off that. It's really working and learning about school at the elementary level, from preschool, kindergarten, all the way up. The other piece is every time that we normally have awards in elementaries for each quarter, there's definitely a correlation between those students that are recognized for attendance and then their achievement. And so it's a direct correlation, because we know that when students are here, they can engage, they can learn, and they can grow. And that's how it leads to achievement.
Let's hear from the high school folks.
High school attendance continues to be a challenge. And I think kind of what Superintendent Miner addressed as far as the patterns of attendance, those are habits that are really hard to break when you turn 12, 13, 14 years old. But as Ms. Spurlock said, the correlation between attendance and achievement also becomes a correlation between attendance and graduation. And we can't suddenly expect our kids to change their behavior on a dime, because now my goal is to graduate. Those patterns that are established at the early grades are really, really important for us to try to figure out how to break those.
What you just said is really powerful, Ms. Dooley. I have workforce development partners who are asking me sometimes, not what's your pathway, not what are your grades, but do they come to school?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. That's right.
And I remember a key instance when I was working with Miss Dooley, and we had a student who had had perfect attendance since kindergarten. Mm-hmm. And just that alone, she was so proud of. And she was a decent student. She was a good student, but making sure that she was at school every day was a priority, and that helped make her more successful.
I think as the leaders of the district and for leaders of their buildings, we have to be very, very intentional that we are creating places where kids want to be, and that we have relationships with kids that are powerful enough to help kids make that choice when the alarm goes off. I don't want to stay home in bed. I want to go see my teacher. I want to go see my friends. I want to go participate in that activity or play on that team. So we have an obligation and a responsibility to create climates in our buildings, programs in our buildings where kids want to be every day. That's on us.
What you said is really powerful because there are several schools of thought on that, and one of them I think is rather rudimentary, and I don't mean it as a pejorative, but it's, hey, there are boxes or systems that are in place, and if you just check the attendance and if you keep repeating what the attendance is, it'll get better. It doesn't work that way. You are absolutely right. There's a normative component to this, Ms. Dooley, where the culture that you create there, that generates the attendance, not just because we checked it every day.
Man, I agree 100%. Like, creating that culture where students want to be in school is absolutely critical. But, and I'll add to that the competing interests. You know, there's so many things in our community that tugs at our students. You know, making money to help out with their families, to clothe themselves, to purchase toiletries, you know, items they need to survive in general. You know, one thing that we did at Thurgood was create a cougar closet where students could get some of the items that they needed. And so we saw, especially with our students that lived in group homes, man, the attendance for them was pretty robust. I mean, it was pretty good, because they knew they could get what they needed in the building, as well as our general education students as well. But I agree with everybody, creating that culture where students feel accepted, feel heard. I mean, we had a student that lived in a group home, got transferred to Youngstown. She got on a bus and came back to Thurgood. Man, came back to Thurgood because she knew that people at Thurgood loved her, cared about her. You know, so yeah, that was what we did at Thurgood. But that culture is king.
Relevance is very important. To piggyback off of what you said. I mean, times are changing. COVID changed the world. Are we keeping up with our students, or are we teaching them the same way we've been taught? So the culture, we have to make it appropriate and relevant for our students so that they want to be here.
And I think a key piece that you had mentioned was really working with our families and helping them to remove some of the barriers to help their students come to school too. Because we need to reach out, we need to work as a team for plans for success for students in regards to attendance. Because sometimes things are, at wherever they are in their life, they need that support. And we need to be able to reach out to do that.
I'm glad you mentioned that. As far as removing barriers, no, it wouldn't happen in our district, but I have seen other districts where kids are discouraged if they don't have the right uniform, clothes, and things like that, and making a choice. Well, I know my uniform's not clean and I don't have anything to wear, so I'm just not going to go. Or schools where they may send them back home and won't even let them stay if they're not dressed in the uniform. So there's some systemic barriers that can get in the way of kids coming to school, and they may have done all they could to get there to be turned away. is just something to be considered and thought about.
Speaking of systemic issues, sometimes I've had conversations with colleagues about positive school cultures, and we're pushing kids out sometimes. We are trying to manage things with a 10-day suspension. We know what the research says about what happens to a student if they have reached that 10-day threshold. And we have kids getting 3 and 4 10 days. So when we're talking about systems, positive school culture, restorative practices, that's really important when we're looking at attendance, because if we looked at attendance for kids, that's a huge piece of it.
Right.
We're pushing kids out at times.
To Ms. Goins' point, I think in order for us to implement systems that benefit kids, man, it's all about relationships. We have to know who we serve, and we want them to feel comfortable with us as well. I don't know that you can change culture without establishing relationships and really truly understanding cultural norms, ideologies, needs.
There you go again, being a star.
But he has a star jacket on today.
There you go again.
This is not a star jacket.
There you go again.
It was kind of cool this morning.
Taking the ball and shooting every time. Won't he let anybody? He's going to between his legs, around his back.
But
But it could be as simple as this. I had the honor of working with a teacher named George Baylog. And George Baylog started every single class, every single day with, "Good morning, kids. Thanks for coming to school today." That's how he started every period. And it would make everybody giggle and or roll their eyes back in their head. But it was a greeting of warmth. And he meant it. He was glad to see the kids in their seats that day. So we control this. I want to give a shout out to Wagaman. Their entrance in the morning, from bag check through walking through the metal detectors, is like a party. If you had a bad night or a bad morning, you're going to have a smile on your face by the time you get through that bag check. So we can create opportunities for this to be fun and to be light and to be welcoming.
Yeah. As a former high school principal, it's been many years ago, one of my messaging to staff was that there should be an adult for every student in this building. So every kid in this building should be able to identify with somebody in this building. Kids come to school kids come to school to see people who care about them, who have high expectations for them, who are those competing forces that are telling them you can do this. This is doable. Yep. Mm-hmm. Life's not easy, but you can achieve, you can overcome, and this is the way to do it. I think we are what we celebrate. How are we celebrating kids? When kids come into these buildings, do they feel like they can be successful here? And are there people, even if they don't have the wherewithal, are there people they're saying, you can do this. This is doable. You can, if you do this. Do we have rubrics? Are we modeling what they need to do to be successful? Are we giving them some experiential kind of opportunities to see people that look like them, that to say this is doable? But how are we celebrating kids? Are we celebrating academic excellence? Are we celebrating kids who come to school every day? Are we celebrating kids who write amazing poetry and stories, who do amazing National History Day projects, who do amazing science fair projects? I don't know that we've gotten away from that, but schools used to be a place where it was fun. And there's a lot of laughter and smiling, and people are glad to be there, the adults and the kids. And kids come to those kind of places, bottom line.
I think that's a wonderful segue to the adults. And I didn't know this at the time when we worked together, Ms. Goins and Ms. Spurlock, but I was at the metal detector every day with David Johnson, and we went through every bag. And there was a hello and a good morning to every single student who walked through the doors of Thurgood Marshall High School. And that also was a trigger for me about who had books and who did and didn't have homework. And that was and Miss Goins and Miss Spurlock are laughing because those are the first room stops. No homework, we're on the way. And that's a true story. And so, but I was there every single day. I didn't think about it as being there as the principal. I was just there to greet kids. And so I'm glad we're in agreement here today that attendance is actually related to culture. Attendance is related to relationships. Now, what about the attendance of our teachers? Now, we're going to talk about everybody else who surrounds them in just a moment. But what about the 900 or so teachers that and that come to work every day? What do we say about how do we make it put them in a position where they want to be at work every day? Because we have an attendance issue. Let's be clear with adults.
Mm-hmm. I used to have a conversation with my staff around your why. Understanding why you are here, what is your purpose, is it aligned to the work that you do? Because if it is, then you want to be there too. If there's a misalignment, then you have struggles. And I would say, if you got up this morning with no zest, you had to be drugged out of the bed, you might want to rethink what you're doing every day because there's a misalignment somewhere. So I think people need to be honest with themselves about what it is they want to do in their work life.
I love the why. I absolutely love that. What comes to mind is like mission oriented. If you feel like this is your mission to serve students and make a positive impact or be a positive impact or influence in their lives, you do get up with that zest. Mm-hmm. Like Thurgood, I'd be tired after, basketball games and, I'd peel myself out of the bed. But as soon as I hit that parking lot, lock and loaded. I'm snapping up. I'm snapping up my chin strap.
Here.
Let's go. Let's go.
I want to be that teacher, though, because we were all teachers in here. All 8 of us were teachers. Yeah. I want to be the teacher that says, Dr. Jones, it's unsafe in here. That's why I don't want to come. Dr. Jones, the kids have cursed me out for the 3rd time this week. That's why I don't want to be here. What do you say to that teacher?
That's heavy because it happens. Mm-hmm. I've had it happen.
We all been cussed out.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Some more than others.
I think it's the being able to relate to it too. And maybe it's my experience, but at one point I might have been the one doing the cussing when I was in 6th, 7th grade. So when I see a 6th and 7th grader upset and cuss, I can relate to that. I understand you. I get it. Yeah. And it's the behavior, it's not the child. Right. Because the child is here to be taught and we are here to teach. So if they're cussing me out, I'm still on a mission because I know that you can do better. Like you said, somebody needs to know you can do better, and I'm here for that.
And I expect you to do better.
And you're going to do better.
And you're going to do better
because
I can make that happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As a teacher?
As the teacher.
Absolutely.
Teacher advocacy.
Because the teacher's going to say, you all have the power to put kids out. I don't
put kids out.
Mm-mm.
I remember my early days teaching at Fairview Middle School, which was an amazing experience. These were Hall of Fame teachers that came to work every day, that were allowed me to be a team, allowed me to be a part of the team. And they just had high expectations for each other. They were all about kids. They knew their content. They were about instruction and pedagogy. And they said, Miss Goins, pull that skirt down now, or, button up that top. This is when I was young. I was a young teacher. There was a certain expectation of how a teacher was going to present themselves in front of these babies because they were our babies. But I learned so much from them. And I hope that I'm that same kind of example. But I wouldn't dare. I'm going to work anyway. They have to send me home because I was a part of that. as a teacher. There was no way I was missing work and letting them down.
I agree, and I was in the same circumstance. I had a really strong principal starting at Hickorydale, and every day was a celebration. I think about how we were the first week of school. There were balloons, there were welcome signs and everything, but every day we're welcoming kids in and excited about the learning, and you didn't want to miss it. And missing school as a teacher, it wasn't even an option. There's no way I would miss. Yes, some students from high school on down, they'll cuss you out. You know they're coming with issues, but it's not you. They're coming in with things and they need support. They may feel safe enough to react that way in school because they're really dealing with something at home where they don't feel safe to get it out of their system. And when kids have experienced trauma, it's going to come out in some way. It's up to us to recognize it and to dig deep about not what we're going to do to the child, but try to figure out what happened to the child and make it a place where I want to be there. And say to those kids, because I have the kids that had attendance problems, when they missed a day, where were you? Why weren't you in school? And say it with a sense of urgency. Why weren't you here? You know, and they look surprised because has anyone even asked them that when they were absent?
You all lit up when I said y'all were our teachers. Boy, y'all sat up and got on the edge of your seat, you know, and I thought that was exciting that being, you know, going back, remembering your teaching days got you excited. What say you, Miss Dooley? Because I've been around long enough to run across lots of your students. They all said you were an extraordinary teacher, and I'm sure you were there every day. What say you about teacher attendance and efficacy?
Wow. It's a hard thing for me to talk about sometimes because I can't relate to having excessive absences from work. I felt like the work was so important that even on a day when I would take a field trip or even on a day when I had to go to some training, I was in the building before school talking to the sub, just those were my kids and that was my responsibility. And I took that very seriously. And I think our teachers now take their kids and their obligations very seriously. But I think it's just you have to have Teflon. You have to be able to look through some of the nonsense that isn't part of our day-to-day work. Kind of like Ms. Miner was saying, you know, our kids bring a lot of baggage with them to school some days, and we are the adults, they are the children, and words don't hurt us. Words are not appropriate, don't get me wrong. I mean, I believe we as adults, we need to correct and redirect, but we also need to focus on what is it that kid needs in that moment. But as a teacher, I had a ball as a teacher. I had a great time. And I was constantly preparing and constantly digging for things and labs and ideas and books. And my classroom was like a circus and a zoo. Animals, that is, not like crazy people. But my classroom also reflected the content that I taught. And I think one of the things I see when I go out into buildings is I'm like, what subject is taught in this room? Because I can't tell. Versus another classroom like, this is social studies. I see globes and maps and presidents and famous leaders. So all of those pieces are just really important. And I loved every second of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Lawrence, you asked I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say that teachers are a part of a team. And when somebody's missing, that building doesn't flow just the same. But also teachers need to remember that they're human too. And if we have to take care of ourselves so we can take care of our students. And I remember this example, and it just came to mind. I was teaching at Meadow High School, and I was having something going on I couldn't hear. It was ringing in the ears, like the ringing was so loud I couldn't even hear. And I was like, I'm going to make it through. And Dr. Lawrence came to my classroom, and he was like, Judy, you need to take care of yourself. I don't know if you remember that story. I was like, he's like, because I would just push on through and say, it's going to get better. With the ringing just kept on getting louder. But I needed to be there for my students, but I needed to take care of me to be able to do that. Now, I
Take
think
care of yourself on the weekends.
Right.
Be at work on Monday, though. Can we do that?
I think it was Friday when I said it.
Can we agree to do that? So we're not giving folks a license.
Oh, well, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But
TikTok is telling them,
right.
Take care of you.
Right.
Call your boss. Don't go in.
Well, no, that's not what I mean
Beyonce,
at all.
Who's
Whatever.
telling them?
But we need to make sure that we take action when that happens, so that we can take care of ourselves, so we can be there for those
But
students.
being a part of a team matters.
Absolutely.
And not one
Yes.
to let the team. But as a teacher, honey, I wouldn't miss work because I thought I was so important
Right.
to the learning of my children. They needed me. My kids needed me. Do you understand? It was 2 hours of sleep.
So one day
I was coming
had-
in because I had what I was going to
Yeah.
teach. I thought was so important to them.
I love.
and I had to be there.
Me too. I didn't ever want to miss, so I would every now and then my voice would go out, and I would have laryngitis. Well, no. What I did, I said, today we're gonna whisper. We're gonna whisper all day, and everybody in the class, because they're little kids, we would just whisper. You gotta whisper, because your voice is out, Ms. Minor. That's what you do. And I said, yeah, but we're gonna whisper today, and I just kept on going. I said,
So I can't help. Oh,
So going to Ms. Gowen's point, research actually says that the more a teacher is present, the better students perform and the more that they learn. I mean, and it is very significant, a day here or there, but, if a teacher is absent, more than a couple of days, the learning impact on students is significant, and especially in some early years, and then again later in in middle school and high school, that it is so prevalent and significant.
so
And we're from the era of homework. So that if you missed too many days, that meant homework was piled up on. I had to grade.
Yeah.
So it all because I was gonna have some homework, right? Every day.
right.
And sometimes on weekends they will be reading something.
Right.
So this whole notion of no homework is a brand new phenom. We gave homework, but I
Yeah,
could not miss
you gotta
work
do
because I didn't want my homework to pile up on me that I had to grade.
Right.
I mean, true.
And I felt the same way as a teacher as well. But I keep going back to something that Dr. Lawrence asked about the teacher that comes to the principal or goes to the principal. I don't feel safe. The kids are off the hook. Like
It's
on
the
the
parents' fault.
Right. And so on the surface, like my lived experience is different from a lot of people's lived experience. And so I never really took offense to what a kid may say to me as their teacher. And I had like a dogged spirit when it came down to like really building relationships with the kids that I served.
I've never seen you lose your composure or even look mad.
Thank you. It's the duck that floats on the water. Underneath, the feet are like furiously just going. But, it's a learned skill. But, like, lived experience is so powerful. And, like, I thought about a conversation that I had with a teacher last year who didn't feel safe. And I went on to, I thought I was being gentle in the challenge, but it was during a staff meeting, maybe faculty council. I don't feel safe. The kids are doing X, Y, Z, pushing each other in the hallway. They're just violent. I don't feel safe. And I said, well, you know what? I appreciate you sharing that with me and with us. But there's probably a spectrum, right? Like you have some adults in the building that may feel like you do, but then there are those in the middle. And then there are those on the other end of the spectrum. Like I feel totally safe. I don't feel like our kids are violent. I mean, they horseplay, they push and they roughhouse a little bit, but that was my lived experience, and I can appreciate your lived experience and what you bring, but also understand that the terminology you use can be infectious.
Well, that's a good.
And we want to create the culture that we desire. So
That's a good transition to the last part of this segment of this podcast. You said terminology. The last part of this is going to be called the hostage segment. And it's about all the other people that surround teachers. And I called it the hostage segment because when I was leaving Stivers to go to Thurgood, Miss Dooley says to me, you should know how to turn the bells on and off. You should know where the power supply is for the building. You should know how to turn the water on and off. You should know. I mean, so she goes on this list of things, and I'm like, I'm like the principal. I'm not the custodian. And she was right. Yeah, because the other people that surround teachers, we have a attendance issue there too. Why do you think the support personnel, why do you think we struggle with attendance there too? And to principals, you should know how to do all that so that you're not held hostage.
Mm-hmm. I don't have an answer for that.
whose phone was that?
I mean, when I became the principal at Thurgood, he had left me a list of, and I have it to this day, nuts and bolts. I said, well, who's going to do all of this? Like to myself, who does he expect to do all of this? I'm the principal. Right. But he left me a note. And I have it left me a document to this day, Thurgood Marshall nuts and bolts. And I was like, and then I had to call him back in about a month and say, I apologize. I had no clue of what a principal had to do. But I think, again, that whole culture, the culture of everybody matters. If people are made to feel valued as a valued member of that school community, folks come to work.
SRO, secretary,
because it's your colleagues. It is not your your supervisors. It's your colleagues that say, hey, you got to show up for the kids, or we need you here more. I think that is more impactful than the person that necessarily the person that evaluates you. It's that we've all bought into this culture that our presence matters and that we're doing this as a team to make a difference for kids. And everybody on the team has value. So I think when everybody is made to feel valued, there's nobody on the team better than another. Everybody has different roles, but if everybody is valued, I think that improves attendance.
Yeah,
I agree 100%. We as building leaders have to set a culture of care for all staff. And I know sometimes people take for granted those other positions. But if those other positions aren't there, whether it be the custodian or the food service person, I know where I worked before, we lost a food service person, and I was serving lunches for about a month, and the kids did not like it. They did not. But I did it because they had to eat. So, but I think it's a way we can lead to make sure everyone feels welcome. We talked about making our school a loving, welcoming environment for students, but it has to be that way for staff too. As a leader, am I speaking to all of my staff? Am I checking on them, regardless of their position, whether it's a para, a custodian, the food service manager? Am I just, hey, how's everything going? Do they, as Sharon just said, do they feel valued? Those are ways we can help increase attendance and give everyone a sense of belonging.
And I would add to that, just, sometimes people don't understand the value of their role and how important that is. Because we all play a role in how well students learn and how well teachers are able to perform their jobs. And no matter what our role in the district is, we all have roles to support students and student learning.
Two words come to mind for me, like communication and perspectives, perceptions, maybe. I think how we communicate with each other is important, but that then goes back to relationships and understanding cultural norms. For instance, at home, growing up, my mom asked me to do something, and I didn't quite hear her, and I said, "What?" Probably get knocked off my feet, because I said "what" to my mother, So just understanding like those small nuances in terms of how we communicate are important.
And where we are in our spaces as leaders, do you
Right.
speak to the nutrition service ladies every day?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think of your custodian and your SROs as part of the team?
Right.
Right.
See, and so
Yeah.
two-way communication. Like, I think we need to be intentional about engaging our team in two-way forms of communication, as opposed to one way.
Let me give you an example. David Johnson, in terms of situational awareness, I don't care how many PhDs, masters, or degrees anybody in this room gets, nobody has the laser-like focus on situational awareness as David Johnson, who's the SRO over at Stuyvesant. He was a Thurgood Colonel White forever. But his sensibility, his kindness to kids, I could not have done it without him. I had I had a couple amazing assistant principals, but I never had the same one more than 2 years. David Johnson, ride or die with me every step of the way. And I've had some other decent number 3 SROs or number 2 SROs, could not have done it. And he made those kids, and he, he's at the door. Miss Goins, we all have to put in $10. So-and-so's been in that jacket for 2 years. We got to get him a coat. Or so-and-so's wearing the same shoes. Those people matter. I could not have done this without. When David Lawrence left, I had to rely on David Johnson. At Thurgood, and so to hear somebody say they don't feel safe, that's a whole nother podcast we got to talk about. Because who's responsible? Because who's just saying who's responsible? This school is all of our responsibilities.
Exactly.
Are you standing at your door?
Yes.
Are you greeting kids?
Yep.
The principal. I'm supposed to come and get them from your door? No. We all have a responsibility to make sure this building is safe and for kids. So when I hear people, that's a whole nother podcast, and I'll moderate that one. But when I hear that,
You had a seat right here.
no, I'm just.
We heard it. We heard it.
No,
Dr.
no,
Lawrence, I heard
Right.
that.
Don't cut
It's
that out.
gonna
Right?
make sure it's on tape.
No, I don't want it. No, you do it so well, and I trust you. And I'm gonna support you, and I'm sticking by you.
Yeah, it was interesting. We did like a matrix where took our core values because we wanted to build those relationships, right? So, administrator to teacher, what does respect look like? What does it really mean? What does it sound like in a building on a day-to-day basis? Responsibility.
Not just teacher, attendance clerk. Yeah.
So
Secretaries.
So that would have been the next level.
Okay,
Yeah. So we
all
did. So we did admin to
Yeah.
teacher, teacher to admin, teacher to teacher, teacher to student, student to teacher. In terms of the core values, but then the next level would have been, everybody else as well.
So what was the
We probably
process?
should have did
What
it.
you talked
So
about this process.
so an
What was the
understand. Good question. No, an under. So it was
What's the
an.
takeaway?
So to start, so we talk about culture, right? Cultures, perceptions, and beliefs give rise to behaviors, right? Our beliefs, our perceptions about kids drive our behaviors,
Yes,
right?
they do.
And so I wanted,
So that
I wanted to
exercise
take some,
demonstrated.
yes, in terms of what are the beliefs that our kids have around what respect is. Like in the classroom, a teacher should know and understand what the kids think about what respect is
And what it looks like.
and what it looks like and what excellence is. And then from that point on, we move into behaviors. How do we need to behave as adults to ensure that positive school culture is really a thing, that we're really creating the culture that we want? Now, not at Thurgood anymore, but it's something that we would have continued to do. I think it just put us in position to understand who the kids are, what their perceptions and beliefs were around what our core values were, and for us to understand our parents, who they are, what they expect as it relates to our core values. So it's an identification of behaviors.
We're going to give the last word to the IB queen, Miss Miss Judith Spurlock, who taught IB at Meadowdale IB
Can I say one
International
more
High
thing,
School.
Can I say one more
Yes,
thing?
my partner.
But you know what? When you just boil it all down,
Okay.
we have thousands of kids who have had interrupted schooling due to COVID, have historically been underserved because they're urban kids, many of whom live in poverty. We need everybody to come every day. It's just that simple. We don't have a day to throw away. We don't have a period to waste. And if the custodian is not there, that impacts the lunch ladies. If the food service people aren't there, that impacts the speed of the lunch line, which takes away instructional time. It all matters. So there's a sense of urgency. We just need you to be present because what you do is important.
I need to piggyback. I want to jump. They need to come, but you got some data that says if we're not doing something when we come, it almost doesn't make a difference. We got some data that says we need you to come and perform and show up for kids in a meaningful, significant way.
That's
because
another
there is some.
podcast.
Yeah, that's a whole.
That's
a different podcast.
That is the next level. That is the next level.
Literally the next level.
That's
to
the
this
next
podcast.
level.
Okay.
But yes, what are you doing now that you're here?
Ms. Spurlock closes out.
Well, my thoughts are just making sure that everyone is a part of that team and that they're valued, but they all have a part of encouraging students and making that culture of that building. So everybody wants to be there. And it's greeting students, it's showing them how to do school and how to restore themselves in situations and how to handle situations. We are all part of that education process. It doesn't matter where you are in that building. You are part of the success of those students. And all students need to come to school. All staff members need to be there to support students, to encourage them, and to have their backs, because that's what it means for all of us. It's all of us together. We are all DPS, and we're all here for students and moving them forward.
All right.
All right. Yep, you heard it here. Episode 4, all the pieces matter. All the pieces matter. Everybody's going to be at work tomorrow. Nope, it's Saturday, Monday. Have a good one.